Hello, I hope everyone's having a good day. I kind of actually just woke up and you can see I'm in my kind of comfortable clothes, and I just wanted to do a little small video about mixing colors. And in order to mix colors, I wanted to do landscape colors today, and I wanted to start off with something simple. And I am going to be using my own paints, my own Arpoli paints, but you can use any paint that you want, acrylics, oils, watercolors. I happen to be using acrylics, and I'm using basic tea white. I'm using it's a Mars black. I'm using, it's more like a Hansa yellow. I have two different types of red, but I have a cadmium red. I have a phthalo green, phthalo blue, and then I have Mars black. Now the thing is, you can use any color, and what I tell students usually is when you're using the colors, and I'll show you, you want to make sure that you have a kind of a good variety of the colors, and you want to make sure that you have them spaced apart. So I kind of have my whites in one section, and I leave myself a really large space for my yellows in between, and then I have my reds, and I have my greens, and my blues, and my blacks in between. And if you don't know the colors, the thing is, we had discussed this in the materials section. Sometimes you might look for, a phthalo blue, and you have a cobalt blue, that's okay. But I like to start a little bit with the darker, rich colors, and then I have more of a chance to make them light or dark. But if I'm starting out with a color that has a lot of white in it, my options are limited for the type of mixing that I can do. So I prefer, if you don't know the names of the colors, just think white like typing paper. Black like to the color of tar or the street. Very simple. Yellow, you can think of a lemon. Red, the color of a fire engine. Green, the color of a cucumber, and blue, the color of a night sky. And you're pretty much set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix the colors up here. I'm going to be moving them with the palette knife. I kind of dipped my palette knife a little bit in the water, and I wiped it off just so it's clean. And I'm going to start with the light colors. And the reason why I'm doing this is I want to have a cohesive canvas. In other words, I want the colors to have some kind of relationship to each other. And sometimes when you use a color that if you're not mixing one color with another color, you're just using it straight out of the tube, you don't know what's in the color, and you're adding it to another color that you might not know what's in the tube anyway. This way you can make your own colors, and they have a relationship to each other. So if you have blue on one side of the canvas, maybe that blue's mixed with a little bit of yellow, and it's making a different color green. And the colors and the relationship on the canvas is very important. We'll go into that in another class. I'm just going to show you right now how you can start your palette. So what I would do is I have a little bit of white on the tip of the edge of my palette knife, and I have a lot, and I'm kind of putting it up here on this edge of the corner, and then I'm just taking some of this yellow that I had that was here, and I'm just recycling it, and I'm kind of moving it here. And what I would do is I have these two colors, and I'm going to mix equal amounts. I'm going to take all of this yellow, and I'm going to move it into the white. And the reason why is I always take the darker color and move it into the lighter color, so I am able to have a little bit more of the control of the color. And you can see that that color is a very, very, now it's almost like a white kind of yellow. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is then I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to have this white, I'm going to move it over here, and I'm going to add in another thing equal amounts of yellow, and to this spot I'm going to add a little bit more yellow, and then I'm going to add equal amounts of red. So I'm going to move this over here, and this is yellow and white, and now I have this mixture of yellow, white, and red. I'm doing it really big so you can see how large that color is. Okay, and then I'm going to move that down here. Now I have some more pink here. to that color, I am going to add some green. So I'm moving this green down here. And we're doing impressionist colors, so we want to have really nice colors for the landscape. Maybe that's a, color for the sky, and this is a landscape color. And then I'm going to pick up some of my yellow here, and I'm going to move my yellow here again. And I'm going to take equal amounts of this green, and I'm going to mix the green and the yellow. And I have this color green, and now I'm just going to move that green over here, kind of just recycling it and moving it over. And then I'm going to add equal amounts of my blue. And it becomes very, 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 very dark. It's like a greenish blue here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of white, because you were saying that we want to make these colors a little bit more like the Impressionists. So we're going to brighten that up. And now we have these three different colors. We have this green and white, green and yellow, and a little bit of white, and green, white, and blue. And then I'm going to pick up some more yellow, and I'm going to move my yellow down here. And to this yellow, I'm going to add equal amounts of blue. And as you can see, I have a different color green. So all these greens are really kind of important. And we're going to use them in a minute. So I have this color green. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to move the straight green. I'm going to add some pure yellow, so it's really bright. But I'm going to tone it down with a little bit of blue. What I'm doing is I'm trying to get all these different shades of green for my landscapes. Then I'm going to move some green over here. I'm going to add a little bit of red to that green. And now I have this brownish green. It's still a green, but it's more like a brownish green. And it's a little bit more realistic than using that straight green out of the tube. That could be a green for a shadow. Then I'm going to move that brown green down here, and then I'm going to add some more yellow to it. I have this beautiful landscape brown, and you can see some of these colors. You can see they still have their properties of having white in them. So you have the green, and you have the yellow and green, and you have your green, red, and you can see that that is a little bit of white. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to move to these greens again, the pure green. And then this time we're going to add a little bit of black to it until it gets dark. So we still want to see the property of the green. You see how dark that is? But what we're going to do this time is we're going to add a tiny bit of white to it. So when we add white to a color, if you remember, this is going to be a tint. And I have this grayish color. I'm going to add a little bit more green to it, just so it's a beautiful, beautiful gray green. Okay, and then I'm going to move that gray-green over here, and I'm going to add some more yellow to it. So I'm working my way around where I have all of these different types of greens, and I want them to be a little bit more creative. I just don't want green and yellow, green, yellow, and white, green, yellow, and red. I want to start branching off, and now that I've mixed a lot of primary colors together and secondaries, and I kind of want to move on, and I want to add more colors on top of that to see how it's going to change. So I'm going to put my yellow here, and I had some of this color recycled in it, and it's a beautiful color for a nice shadow. You see how green, it works really well with this brown up here. And these colors are a lot more interesting than colors that you would buy in the store. And now I'm mixing my blue and my red, so I almost have this kind of purplish color, but I'm going to drastically change that to a brown by adding some of my yellow to it. And then I'm going to add a spot of green. Now the reason why I like to mix the colors and have all the colors underneath is because they work well when I want to put them next to another color for contrast. So say for an example, if I had this color and I put it next to a yellow, do you see how that really pops? It's a lot more interesting than just having a regular shadow with a regular color brown. So now these might be my browns for my shadows, and these are my greens. So I'm going to recycle that green that I just had there, brown, I'm sorry, and I'm just going to add a little bit more green to it. And I'm going to make sure that I'm, mixing that with my knife here, so I have enough of this color. And now I have this dark color for a shadow. The wonderful thing is you haven't used black so much, except in one place over here. But you can make all these beautiful dark colors, and you don't have to use a lot of black. So again, I have my red, and then I'm going to take my blue, and I'm going to add it with my red again, and I have these beautiful purples, and I'm going to take some of my yellow. Now I want to show you something. When I teach students to do the palette knife, the cool thing is I can kind of scrape and those colors come through. We'll do that in another exercise. Now I'm going to add some greens. I want to keep adding the green. I want to use all that green and recycle it until I get this nice color for my landscape again, which is even a darker color brown. And then we're going to do this, and we're going to move this over here. I'm going to show you something. We're going to add white to this. So we have this grayish color. And we're going to move that color over here, and then we're going to add yellow. And I know we used a lot of yellow today, but we're working on landscape colors, and we want to kind of brighten those greens up and make those shadows a little bit interesting. So this is a much better palette. You can still see that we have our secondary and primary colors here, but the colors are much more interesting for all of those colors for the landscape. And then we're going to do two more, and I want to show you this. This is where we are going to use black. So we're going to take a little bit of our yellow, let's do it here, and we'll put it here, and we're going to take a tiny bit of black, and it's going to turn it almost like this color, this green, but we made it a little bit differently. And then we'll add a little bit more yellow to it. You can just bring it out, brighten it a little bit, and a spot of white. So now we have all these great landscape colors here, all these different beautiful color greens. And now I'm going to bring that green down. I'm going to add some red to it, a dark blue. I'm going to mix it really well. And then I'm going to add, again, some more yellow. And you really want to get in the habit of doing it very slowly. Don't rush with your knife. I think when you rush, the process should be really fun about mixing the colors. That's a great part about mixing colors, at least for me, is seeing how all the colors come together. You want to mix it really well. And then I have some of my green, because remember it is a landscape color. And I will show you, let me move this a little closer, all of these colors now, they are great shadows. None of them are out of the tube. And I have that pink on the top just to kind of show you as far as a contrast. So these would be some colors that I can use for my shadows. And I left the green in the middle. You can see that bright green here in the middle because, we added yellow to it, and then we added white. We did green and blue and a little bit of red, and we got some of these dark shades. You can see the purple in here coming in with the yellow. And if I wanted to change this, I can just add more yellow to it and it would turn brown. These colors look black, but they're dark greens for shadows. This one looks a little bit gray. So you can see you have a little contrast, and these are what I would call my shadow colors, and they're how I would start. And again, we started with these yellows, and then we did the pinks. Now there's another way you can do the shadow colors, starting just with yellow and reds, and that's a kind of a different color. The shadows will be a little bit brighter, so that's what we're going to do down at the bottom here. And this will be the last. Oh, we'll do it up here. We have enough space. So we add a yellow, and then we're going to add equal amounts of red. And we have this kind of, and I added maybe a little bit more red than I should have. But my red is very bright, so I have this orange, and I'm going to leave the orange up here so you can see what we're doing with it. And we're moving it here, and into that orange we're going to add very dark blue. And then we're going to add some more yellow. And then we're going to move that color down here, and because it's very, very dark, we're going to have to add a little bit of white to it, of course, and that's going to make it a tint. And we're going to move it. And these are all of our colors today that we can use for our landscapes. Again, they're a little bit more interesting. You can see them up close. They're quite beautiful colors. So try it at home. I think you're really going to like it. When you start making new colors, your palette will be a little bit more interesting. And try to use colors as contrasting colors. Try to say, well, I'm going to use this gray because it has, you know, a little bit of yellow in it, and then I'm going to contrast that maybe against a blue gray or a purple gray. And it might be very, very subtle, but when you start putting in your other colors, you'll see the contrast really coming forward. You can also try using one of these for background colors. Okay, so I'm going to clean up, and then I'm going to show you what we're going to do next with these colors.